Gary Chaloner is an award-winning writer and artist who is currently working on the new adventures of Will Eisner's John Law. I interviewed Gary via email the first time around for my biography of Will Eisner, A Spirited Life, but that was when John Law had yet to be published. Now that it's out and building an audience for one of Eisner's lesser-known characters, I thought it'd be fun to talk to Gary again. He suggested we do it via Skype, the internet phone service. Being a new technology junkie, I had to say yes. So Gary has the dubious honor of being the first person interviewed in this series via podcast. Let me tell you a little bit more about Gary before we bring him in on the conversation. He's an Australian-born creator who began his career as a publisher of his own work and the work of other Australian creators through his own imprint, Cyclone Comics. Cyclone published a range of popular comic books in the 1980s and 1990s with titles as diverse as The Jackaroo, The Southern Squadron, Dark Nebula, G.I. Joe Australia, Flash Domingo, and CCQ, which stood for Cyclone Comics Quarterly. Gary's overseas work includes U.S. editions of The Jackaroo and The Southern Squadron, a very odd issue of The Badger with Mike Barron, the award-winning Planet of the Apes, Urchak's Folly, I guess that's one title, The Olympians, a 2-issue prestige series for Marvel Epic Comics, editorial and creative duties on Dark Horse Down Under for Dark Horse Comics, and this series that featured the first U.S. appearance of Gary's creation, Morton Stone Undertaker. His current creator-owned projects include the black comedy of Morton Stone Undertaker, Red Kelso, a pulp-inspired adventure series, and the new adventures of the Jackaroo. And Gary worked closely with comics master Will Eisner in the development and relaunch of Will Eisner's John Law, both online at moderntales.com and in print through IDW Publishing. New adventures are continuing to be published and can be read there. In the 2005 Ledger Awards, that's the Australian Comic Industry Awards, Will Eisner's John Law received several awards. Now, Gary, let's jump in here. Tell us a little bit about John Law and how and when Will Eisner created him.
Well, hello everyone. Hi, Bob.
Hello.
John Law was devised and created by Will back in the mid to late 40s. The Spirit was going very well, and Will wanted to expand his range of publications on the newsstand. So he developed several titles, one of them being the John Law character. But the first one that he released, I think, was Baseball Comics. And it didn't go as well as he would have liked. So the other ideas that he had were put on the shelf for a while. And Will, being the frugal person that he was, utilised a lot of John Law artwork and converted it into Spirit stories. So that didn't see print, or those stories didn't see print as Spirit stories until about 1950. So the John Law material was a fully formed concept that he had been thinking about quite a while, for several years. And so that whole idea was a bit stillborn. And so when the opportunity came along, when I talked to Will and to Dennis Kitchen about developing the series, it wasn't just a dead concept. It was a fully developed, ready-to-go set of characters in a universe that Will had already worked on and established. So that was irresistible.
And was John Law ever published in the 50s or not?
No, it was not. Not in its... all of the work was adapted and absorbed into the Spirit universe. John Law, in his own environment, wasn't published until the 80s in the Eclipse Comics edition.
That was Dean Mullaney and Cat Ironwood.
That's correct, yes.
Right? Now,
and what they did there was that they stripped back a lot of the paste-overs and art changes that Will had made to the original art to reveal the original John Law art underneath.
Huh. And how did you first hear of John Law?
Well, being an Eisner reader for many years and bumping into a lot of the publications that Kitchen Sink press released and that other publications had written about Will Eisner, if you learn a bit about the Spirit, you also learn about these aborted characters that Will tried to publish back in the 40s, and the name John Law keeps on popping up as this parallel Spirit character. So it was only through reading about Will's past and the different things that he's tried in the 40s, that this recurring name of John Law and the characters surrounding him, like Nubbin the Shoeshine Boy and Melba Girl Detective and a few other characters, had always stuck in the back of my mind as something that, why doesn't someone do something with these things?
And whose idea was it that you do this? Was it yours, or was it Dennis? Was it Will?
It was pretty much my idea. I approached Dennis about it. This is after the Spirit, the New Adventures title was cancelled, and I had produced a story for that. And this was also at a time when Kitchen Sink Press had gone belly up, and Dennis was going through a few hard times himself. And I had gotten in touch with him, and just the relationship developed from there. Well, if the New Adventures type going beyond issue number 8, perhaps I can do something else. And the John Law character was always at the back of my mind for me to develop.
Now, when you did work for the Spirit, the New Adventures, did you you completed a story that didn't see print?
That's right. That was going to be in issue 9, and the series ended with issue number 8.
And of course, one of the great ironies here is that you've kind of hinted at it, that Will had done John Law in the late 40s, early 50s, I guess late 40s, and when that did not take off, he adapted the John Law story into the Spirit, and it just, because he never wasted anything. And then following that same thing, many years later, you did a Spirit story and you adapted it to John Law.
I thought it was perfect. I mean, the planets were in alignment, really.
How hard did you have to convince Will to let this happen?
Not hard at all, really. Not from the creative side. The interesting early days of the John Law project was that it was always intended to initially be presented on the web. And that side of the project interested Will a lot. He was used to emailing and things like that, but he wasn't really the full bottle on webcomics and how to deliver something on the net. So it was all new technology to him. So there was a steep learning curve for him as far as it being part and parcel of the present stories.
Now, Will was not the savviest as far as the internet went. How did you explain to him and the business model behind this?
I did the best I could based on the business models that were around at the time. And at the time, Modern Tales was just starting and had been around for several months. And it had the business model of the subscription base, where people pay X amount of dollars a month or a year to get access to the comics behind a subscriber wall. That kind of logic Will could understand quite easily. The whole idea of magazines having subscriber lists and things like that. It was quite easy for him to understand the logic behind the business of the internet. The actual technical side of how to scan in artwork, give it colour, how to upload it to a site, that kind of stuff was initially probably a bit of a struggle for him, but he wasn't a stupid man, so he caught on real quick.
And so, that's interesting. You mentioned that. So you're drawing by hand on paper, as opposed to using. You're not drawing right into the computer.
No. I colour or grey tone on the computer, but everything else is traditionally done.
Oh, interesting. I've wondered about that when I've seen the work.
Yes.
Now, did Will did he give you any particular input as you were getting started on what he liked, what he didn't like?
Oh yes, he did actually. He was very hands off as far as allowing me to do what I want, how I wanted it. But my ideas for law very much fitted with what he wanted anyway. So we were running parallel with our thinking. But there were several times where he did suggest storytelling changes as far as the structure of the story, panel layouts, visual storytelling, things like that. But the overall direction of the strip, the way the setting for the series, what the characters were all about, he basically left that up to I was using his guidelines from the original 1940s stories.
Now, I remember Alan Moore telling me that when he did the story that he did for The Spirit, The New Adventures, that Will told Alan not to make the Spirit a drug addict, among other things. And Alan, of course, was like, "What, me? Would I wouldn't do that." What rules did he lay down for John Law with you?
The one that stands out above all else was that he said, keep the stories human. That's about the only thing that he said that was really a law carved in stone, excuse the pun. He didn't want the stories to go off into any kind of ridiculous directions, and he just said, everything you do with your character, keep the stories human.
And how would you say, for someone who hasn't seen John Law, first of all, how would you describe the difference between John Law and the Spirit?
Well, I would say that the John Law character as a man is a lot more serious than Denny Colt and the Spirit character. So the stories tend to reflect that. There is still humour in there, with characters like the Shoeshine Boy and several of the other supporting cast members. But the character of John Law himself is a little bit more serious and less flippant than Denny Colt and the Spirit.
But
now, this isn't something that I necessarily planned, actually, because most of my other work I consider to have a certain amount of lightness about it and a sense of humour about it. But just when these stories are being produced for the John Law character, the stories are draped with a sense of drama instead of humour. So, well, that's the way I see it anyway.
Both characters have sidekicks, however.
Yes. A favourite of Will's.
Yeah. And now I gather that Nubbin is less controversial than Ebony.
Well, Nubbin's a drug addict and a male prostitute. No, he's not. He walks the street at night. Shining shoes.
Yeah, I think...
No, Nubbin is your dyed-in-the-wool sidekick, comedy relief, a very resourceful street kid and orphan who attaches himself to John Law, and also being a shine boy and hanging around a large metropolitan police station, there's plenty of black shoes to shine his business. So he's very smart and resourceful as well.
And how does John Law do with the ladies?
Well, he's had a rough history with the ladies, which all is reflected in the stories that are being told. So he's had several loves of his life, and he's still trying to find Miss Right, which I actually do have planned out. A great love of his life is coming into his life very shortly, actually.
Really?
Yes. So he's had a rough past, but he's going to have a fairly sweet future.
Now, the series began on Modern Tales online, but it's kind of evolved since then, has it not?
Yes, it has, yeah. The core of the delivery system for the stories will always be the web. And there's a new part of that is going to be I'm redesigning the John Law website together with the new WillEisner.com website as well. So it'll be a functioning part of the new Will Eisner site. These stories online will always be the basis of any collections that are developed in the future.
Oh. And the John Law stories have also appeared in print since then, too. Yes,
that's right, yes. There's been a nice, beautiful edition by IDW called Man Walking, which was December 2004. And it was received very well by critics and fans. So, and there's a new series that's in development now. The first issue has been released, the rest of the series will be coming along shortly.
So that it'll be a regularly scheduled series in print?
No, these will be limited series, so they'll be like self-contained chapters.
And will these be collections from the online, or will these be specially done for print?
Originally, I had planned the material to be print exclusive, but my scheduling at the moment with the Will Eisner site and the workload, I've decided to run the material online, and then once that is done, collect it in print.
And I have to ask, because this is something I'm always curious about. Is the John Law character and the online and the print editions, is it profitable for you to work on?
The online material, it's always been a huge question on, in inverted commas, how do you make money from the internet? And this is part and parcel of my question, is to develop the law project online in a way where it can generate a solid income for myself and for the Will Eisner estate. I haven't found the answers to it yet, but this next phase of the development of the strip will hopefully provide some answers as far as merchandising, advertising support, and things like that will help raise more money via the internet. And this goes hand in hand, of course, with any that are published, which is pretty old school as far as solicitations. You wait your time. 3 months later, you get your figures back and you get money from the publisher.
Right. Now, have you officially licensed the character from the estate, or do you pay them a royalty, or?
I'm basically work for hire to all intents and purposes.
Oh.
Any monies that are generated, a percentage goes to the estate, and the rest comes to me.
Got it. And
I work very closely with different facets of the license or of the project, with Dennis and with Carl, who is now running the estate. So if there is any facet of the business side of the law project, it's always run past them first, so that I don't get myself into trouble.
Yeah,
we don't want that.
No, we would not want that. Now, you mentioned in the conversation that you are involved with the WillEisner.com site. Tell us a little about that. When did you get involved, and what will you be doing there? What are you doing there?
Well, it's a total overhaul of the site. The website had been laying dormant for quite a while, and it was, from what I can assume, the first part of a larger project from the people that had first established the site for Will. Will, of course, is one of the hugest names in comics. Therefore, my approach to his site should be something that reflects his stature, and also the amount and body of work that he produced over the years. Now, there's the Will Eisner Studio as a business entity also has work surrounding or involving Will Eisner projects going off into the future. So the site will also reflect future projects like the new Spirit title coming from DC.
Right.
Trade paperback and book collections of Will's work coming out from other publishers like W.W. Norton's. So not only will the site reflect Will's past legacy of work, but also the things that are happening in the future, like John Law, several of the books that Will has still to produce or to have published since his death, and future editions of his old material.
Very good.
So there'll be it's a totally expanded site. It'll feature forums. It'll feature a very expanded library area. It'll feature the John Law area as well. So it'll be a highly expanded and a lot more interactive site to reflect Will's legacy.
And when will the revised site be launched?
Oh, I'd love to give you a time, but the more work I'm doing on this thing, the more I delve into Will's life and his work and past, the deeper the ocean becomes. So I'd like to say that it'll probably be in the next month or two, but we'll have to leave it at that because of that as far as development.
It is rather daunting, isn't it?
Oh boy. I mean, you try and get these things to a level where you can launch the site at a beta level, add content, and then you find that you just can't do that. No, it's incomplete unless you do this part or this part, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. It's has no edges. It just keeps on growing.
Let me tell you, as somebody who tried to make sense of 70 years of his work in 325 pages, I don't envy you the task. It's
well, his biography section on the new site. I'm scanning your book page by page.
Good luck with that.
I'll be talking to your lawyers soon.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we're all connected through Dennis Kitchen, so I'm sure it'll all work out.
By the way.
No, I know. But it's interesting in that I found I worked with him on the biography for 2.5 years, and I'm continually amazed at the people that I run into who were working with him on projects simultaneously. Now, I knew about I knew about John Law, and I knew about your project, but I had no idea of Benjamin Hertzberg's existence and his involvement with the plot and Fagin the Jew, really until after Will had passed. And I knew about his new textbook, that it was in the works, but there have been other things that I keep hearing about. There was I guess Dennis has talked about a series of novels that were commissioned.
Yes, that's
novels.
right. Yes,
and it's just amazing. I'm sure we're going to be discovering work of his for many years to come.
That's right. Yes, and there are things like, if my memory serves me correctly, there are 50-odd pages of Spirit material. Was it Spirit or?
Yeah, what was it called? The Last Hero or something like that.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm sure all this stuff will be slowly made available to Eisner fans and readers over the years. But yes, Will was a pretty amazing guy. He wasn't superhuman, but he came across like that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, as you hear stories, you do start to wonder. Now, Gary, before we kind of wrap up, what else are you working on these days?
Well, on the short term, I'm just really concentrating on the John Law project and getting the Will Eisner site finished. There are my two major things at the moment. And just last weekend I sat down and reviewed my notes for John Law. And I think that'll keep me busy for the next 5 or 10 years if things go all well for the project. So I do have a couple of individual projects, personal projects on the side, but they really do have to take a back seat to the John Law project at the moment. There is a Jackaroo series which might be recollected for the American market over the next 3 or 4 months, waiting just to get some contracts signed for that. And the Undertaker character might be seeing some sort of life online over the next 3 or 4 months as well. But that will only happen if my scheduling works out with the Law project.
Okay. And Gary, I'm just curious, how different, or in what ways, is the Australian comics market different from the American market?
Well, it has no backbone structure of a direct market distribution system, for a start. So a lot of the publishers down here, they have to decide whether they are going to self-publish and self-distribute through the internet, whether they hook into the overseas distribution system like Diamond and basically distribute it, or whether they think up some other amazing marketing and distribution method for their title. So it's always been a bit of a hard slog down here. And I've also noticed over the last 20, 30 years of Australian comics that the voice is quite a distinct one. A creative voice is quite a distinct one, and the voice is one of what's the word I'm looking for? There isn't a superhero voice down here. There isn't a crime man's voice. all over the place. There are so many different subjects and a variety of material being produced down here that you could pick 20 different comics, and not two of them would be the same. It's this total diversity, I think, is the word I'm looking for. The subject matter down here is so diverse, and that is its strength as well as its weakness, because you can't really get a pool of marketing together with several titles working together to help market themselves.
Do you think that that there will ever be an Australian title that will break through the American market?
Yeah, I think there will be, actually. There are some amazing comics being produced by Australians down here, and there are a lot of Australian creators working big time over in the States at the moment. So there are two ways where Australian creators can go. They can be a creative force like Ashley Wood, Ben Temple-Smith, and a few other big names over there, and writers as well. Or you can be based in Australia, be a creator and a publisher, and try and push your title. And there are things like Platinum Grit by Trudy Cooper, which is absolutely amazing. That is a web-based comic at the moment, platinumgrip.com. But it also produces trade paperback collections of the web, which are available on the net. So Trudy has chosen to not go the way of the American distribution system, and she's relying heavily on internet presence and word of mouth, because it's such a good comic.
Well, Gary, you've been very gracious and kind with your time, and of course your technical know-how, without which we would not have gotten this far. And only you and I will know how difficult this has been.
This is true. I'm standing on my roof holding the TV antenna and my left foot out to get its reception.
I think we all have a good picture of that now. Maybe you could get your wife to snap a picture of that, and we can put that up on the website.
Oh, wait till I get some clothes on.
Oh, God. Oh, now you've ruined the whole thing. Gary, thank you very, very much for your time.
It's been a pleasure.
We, of course, wish you continued luck with John Law, and look for great new things as well.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to listening to more of these interviews.
Me too. Thank you very much.
Okay, talk soon.
All right.
Turn up the stereo receiver.